Earlier today, I was watching a Let's Play by Jacksepticeye while he was, playing a video game. It was a horror game. And, since now I'm older and I think more deeply now, I was thinking, like, oops. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's not that hard to make a good horror game. So, since I'm so arrogant and, well, since I'm such a smarty pants, since I claim that it's not that hard to create a horror game, I thought maybe I would share some of my own insight on how to create a really, really good horror game. So, when creating a good horror game, it is best to rely on psychological horror and not, like shock horror, like shock value. I believe that jump scares and shock can absolutely add to a good horror game, but it does not shape a good horror game. A horror game with just shocks or scares or jump scares, um, it's not a very good game overall. A good horror game relies on good story, good aesthetic, and good gameplay. And by gameplay, I mean, the point of a horror game is to scare the ever loving daylights off of out of somebody, and that is easier than you think. So, as I repeated, making a good horror game is actually easy. I'll explain it to you now. I'll repeat what I said. All you need is a good story. A messed up story would be best. For example, like, let's think of a good sex work. That is a good idea. Or, you know, like, uh, like Hollywood, or like something that is scary in the real world, and then we take it and we turn it into a cool idea. Or maybe like best friends that are toxic, maybe a toxic relationship. Those are examples of good story ideas that are scary. Maybe we could like hell, like let's be a little more creative. Let's go back to the 1800s and make a horror game that's like about war in the 1800s to the 1900s and whatnot. It's going to be really hard to make a horror game based off of Europe or the United States, like North or South America. So instead, what we would or should do is we should either dive into the Middle East or into South Asia, or not just South Asia, East Asia as well. Those um those lands have some really good like mythology. They have some really, really good like ideas. So there's that. All you need is a good story idea that's scary, right? I, like it needs to be scary, it needs to be unsettling, it needs to be eerie, it needs to be terrifying, it needs to make the player uncomfortable or the viewer. I don't know. All right. So, story, right? Aesthetic and atmosphere. Now, dark, like dark, um, like places can definitely scare. And I'm not gonna say that, oh, well, dark rooms and like no light is a very common tactic, and they are like overused. It's basic human psychology. Like people are just afraid of the dark, and you're gonna want to use that, but you're gonna want to be creative with it. Obviously, you're gonna use it like every other single time, but you can do a lot with the dark. You can have in your video game movie have the dark be comforting when it shouldn't be, but the light be the really, really scary thing. Like it's not just darkness that could be unsettling and creepy and eerie. You could also use sound. Now, if you're a sound person, like sound person, what does that even mean? If you're into sound engineering and sound effects and whatnot, I absolutely recommend, using sound to your advantage. You can either make a place just go completely dead silent, or you can, just play with sound. That's gonna do wonders. And it's not just like the aesthetic and atmosphere doesn't just rely on light, what we see and what we hear. Actually, not it relies on what we see and we hear. Um, you don't want to just temper with like light and colors. You're gonna want to tamper with. All right, let's say you're making a horror game about an asylum, a graveyard, uh, whatever it may be. Um, you're gonna want to finally decorate the sort of like the house that you're designing, the graveyard, the asylum, the hospital. Hospitals are a good horror game idea. Let me give you more ideas. Like the streets, uh, police apartments, kind of, maybe not. Karaoke's, hotels, um, things like that, right? And so, you're gonna want to finely and neatly decorate things in order to scare the living hell out of the viewer slash player slash watcher. Yeah, viewer. No matter what aesthetic you're going for, like whether it's like tidy, eerie, or clean, eerie, or whether it's like messed up and you got like blood everywhere and all that stuff, you're gonna really want to make the viewer go like, well, this is normal, but there is something's off. So there's aesthetic. I've already talked about story, but I feel like I haven't delved that deep into it. Now, I've dabbled in sound, and I feel like sound can do wonders to increase or enhance or make the experience better. And by better, I mean worse, and like making the viewer soil their pants. Um, Music or very eerie noises. Those are some really good ideas. And what else? I've pretty much run out of like ideas, but it would be cool to make it realistic. And like horror games, I understand that they're to scare the crap out of people with trauma. Yeah, I think that a lot of people like with trauma enjoy horror games the most. I never enjoyed a single horror game in my life. I don't like horror games. Um, but again, story, aesthetic, sound, these types of things, and lore. Lore is pretty much story, but the only way to go on about a good story is to have like people revisiting the game. Well, not the only way, but like it's better to have people revisiting the game, seeing all these cool little details. Endings, multiple endings could also be pretty good. It could also have morality, like what's right and wrong, and like like is protecting yourself better than looking out for others. You could dabble in moral themes as well. Um, like 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 you could use real life eerie and horrible concepts to make a really good horror game. But in my opinion, if you're gonna make a horror game, I definitely suggest that you put a message at the end and that your story means something. I know this has never been done, according to my knowledge, but I feel like maybe like you should have like a story about like it's just a horror game about rape. That would be beyond terrifying. Genuinely, like that was just that that is. I want you to like. I don't mind whoever takes my ideas and makes them a horror like a game, because I'm never gonna be a video game developer because I'm not really good at. Because in order to be a video game developer, you're gonna have to go into the technology stream, the scientific stream, and I'm not good at math and computer science. So there's that. So feel free to use my ideas. But that's all there is to it. Sorry for taking up your time, and I don't think it's hard to make a good psychological horror video game or movie. All you have to do is just make a really good, really scary story and pitch it. Pitch it to friends, have multiple versions of it. And there we go. Oh, you can even like have like multiple like timelines, right? And each timeline is like scary in a sense and whatnot. Anyways, I'm like these ideas are pretty good, and I hope somebody uses them well one day. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Wow, I'm really glad I started brainstorming.